Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Mimika Cooney. We had her on quite some time ago where she shared some wonderful wisdom about business, but she's actually had a reset. The art of reset is what we're going to be talking about today, resetting your divine heart and soul. She's written a beautiful book, From Warrior, the worrying, to the warrior. And it's how do we step into that role when, there's always something to worry about, isn't there? But it's knowing when to let go and how to trust that faith, that journey from fear to faith. She was burnt out, quite honestly, burnt out. It was like everything in her world just kind of came crashing down at one moment, and she just realized she just couldn't do anymore. And it was time to pay attention and to go take the deep breath, let it go, and then find out how to reset and move forward into a different direction. And, this happens to every single one of us, folks. We've all got that little tap on the shoulder saying, look, I'm pulling the plug here, I'm pulling the plug there. If you do not realize that this particular chapter is coming to an end, all of a sudden you're going to be flat on your back bed, the cosmic 2x4. She paid attention, little signs along the way, and decided, I need to walk away from this life. Things are happening that I need to pay attention to, but I also need to pay attention to me and where I'm going and what's my reset. So I'm so glad that you paid attention to that, Mimika, and have reset your button onto a different path in life. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. That's a really awesome introduction. It's definitely very true to life. And I love the way that you frame it, that, we all get these moments in life where we get these signs and these little taps and these little nudges. And if we don't pay attention, we just keep pushing through. Eventually, something's got to give.
Yes.
And in my case, personally, physically, I got to a stage where I just couldn't do it anymore. My body caved in. And I was like, okay, time to go back to the drawing board.
Yes. And also, some people go, but I've built this career. I'm very successful. How can I walk away from that? There's the money. There's the prestige. There's the status of my importance. How can I do that? Well, if you don't, there's not going to be you to continue on.
Exactly. And I think, for me, this whole book has been a real journey into self-discovery, which is, very aptly named with this radio station. But also just allowing myself to be me, because just an example, when I was last on the show, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. And for me, it's all been about creating businesses. And I love that whole, starting something and creating. I've been a professional photographer for 12 years. I wrote 2 books on the subject. I started to get invited to speak at events. I was building this business and, following all the trends. And for me, I was one of the first people teaching on video marketing, how to actually use video, because I have a background in TV production. I was trained TV broadcasting host. In actual fact, I was hosting a show in England in the days of analog. Okay, I'm dating myself here. Before digital and all that. And to me, I just love conversations with people. I love finding out people's stories. But I got so caught up in this sort of hustle, this whole got to hustle, this whole girl boss thing, which is all about, you got to just get to your goals, and no matter what, and I'm going to push through. And, and to me, it sounded right, but it never felt right. And there was this internal struggle with me. And I've been a woman of faith since I was little. I gave my life to Jesus when I was 10. And for me, he's always been my best friend, walking along. But sometimes I kind of ignored my friend and just, I got this. I'm fine. I've, striving for perfection, striving for those accolades. Because, I've always been the type, if I put my mind to it, I'm going to achieve it no matter what. But along the lines, I kind of sort of was following more of the tactics, like we say, in video marketing, or Facebook comes up with a new algorithm, or Amazon does something, or, there's so much technology that's flying at us at such a rapid rate. Like we were saying before we started recording, first time we chatted, there wasn't video, it was just audio. Now and the things I realized, I was building a business based on more of a trend, more of a, teaching people how to use video marketing. Things run at such a fast pace now that there's no there's no foundation to that. Like, I needed to make sure that I was being me, and I got lost along the way. And subsequently what happened was, I've now in my early 40s, and my energy isn't the same as when I was 20. I mean, I've had 3 kids. I've immigrated twice from South Africa to England and England to the USA, all within a space of like 10 years, started 3 businesses. I literally just didn't give myself a chance to breathe. And eventually, in 2016 was what I call my, when everything fell apart, where I had problems with my business. I literally was, no matter what I was trying, I had several failed launches, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing what everyone tells me to do, and buying all the courses and consulting and software and all that jazz, all the fancy bells and whistles, trying to make things work. And then I had an issue with one of my kids, really suffered from depression, and there was major signs that, like, I have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 weeks later, my mother-in-law passed away, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Literally after, like, I call it like the trifecta effect. One after thing, and it's literally like, I just can't do this anymore. I've never experienced physical grief like that before, where I literally couldn't hold a conversation. My mom and my sister would phone me, and I'm sorry, I can't talk to you.
Yeah.
I'd have to text them. I was like a blithering idiot for a whole week. I just couldn't even speak. So, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm always a happy, bubbly person, always seeing things on the positive side, no matter what. And I've been through a lot in my life, so I've just become very resistant and very resilient. But it got to a stage where I had sort of emptied my well. I'd given so much to everybody else and pushed. I didn't give myself a chance to refill my tank. Yeah. And you can't give anybody, whether it's love, time, support, understanding, unless you have it yourself to give away. So for me, it was just it started a whole thing where, I felt I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want the responsibility and the pressure. And thank goodness I have a very loving and understanding and supportive husband. And he's like, you just need to take the time out. I closed my business down. I stopped trying to hustle for clients. And I just really took time to spend and focus on my family. Like, my family, my kids needed me. My eldest was heading off in the middle of her senior year, heading off to college and all that stuff that goes with it. And I just felt like I needed to rest. Like, some days I just didn't get out of my pajamas.
Yep.
And eventually, when I got to the stage of feeling so frustrated, I ended up finding myself depressed, and I've never been that kind of person. So for me, it was like I had to just allow myself and my body to heal. I had to allow myself to go through the process of grieving, even though it was very painful and very frustrating. But sometimes the worst thing we can do is try to prevent it from happening. Like, yes, when you're trying to hold in a sneeze, it actually does. Yes. Your body just, and within you, you have to just allow that time. And I just took the decision. I took part of what I had to do was to stop allowing things to put pressure on me, and me to be more in the control. So example is, I've learned to switch off all my apps on my phone. I don't switch notifications on. Like, I'll only go in and check email or Facebook or whatever when I'm ready to check Facebook. Mm-hmm. I don't want my phone ringing every 2 seconds when somebody sends me an email. Like, I've had to really make a date with myself. Like, between now and now, say between 8 and 10 in the morning is writing time, and then 11 and 12 is check email. And then otherwise I was never present. Like, I was always like either on my phone, and my kids were like, mom, I told you, like, did you hear me? So I was neither here and I was neither there, and I was just a hot mess. So I just needed to take time to really just give myself time to rest, and it meant sleeping and just eating better, because I was also I'm terrible when I get busy. I just don't eat. And just physically just, rebooting and just giving myself time to really think and pray, and spending time with the Lord to figure out, what is it that you actually want me to do? Because I feel like I've been running on this treadmill, and you've been waiting there patiently for me to ask you what you want me to do. Precisely. And he's like, I'm a gentleman. I'm not going to force my way on you. When you're right and ready, I'll be here. And he's just waiting. And eventually I was like, okay, time to take my foot off the brake. What is it? And really spent a really good full 18 months of soaking myself in the Bible, and reading and studying and looking at listening to podcasts, and, just spending a lot of time and really figuring out myself, who I was, because I think I kind of lost myself along the way trying to impress people. And then realizing what's important to me, and then also going back to where it all started. Like, who am I? Who was I at 5? Like, what were those goals and dreams and visions I had as a kid, that enthusiasm? And I felt like I'd lost that, because it's like I have a saying, trying to wear somebody else's shoes it's never going to take you to your destination, because they're ill-fitting, uncomfortable, and not my style. Like, what is the point in you trying to wear somebody else's shoes to get to their destination. That's not destined for me.
Right.
So, really taking stock. And of course, once I hit 40, it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Still a spring chicken, my dear, still a spring chicken.
But still, you feel like when you're in your 20s and your 30s, one day, I was always a when we do this, then I'll be happy. When I get there, then I'll be happy. And then you get to 40 and you're like, wait, when I was 20, I thought I'd be a lot further along than I am. But that's how life works, right? Things happen and you can't have this stringent to-do list, like my eldest is 19 and I say to her, it's good to make plans, but you need to hold on to them lightly because you don't know what life throws at you. I'm going to do college and then I'm going to have 2.4 kids. I'm going to have the house with the white picket fence. And then I'm going to, that doesn't work. That's not life.
No.
And I think and I'll admit I'm a recovered control freak and perfectionist and people pleaser. So I have all the trifectas. Always worrying about what somebody else is doing, which is why I know for myself I needed to limit my time on social media because I get sucked in and I don't want to be in that comparison mode, always feeling like I'm not good enough. And people look at me and go, what do you have to complain? You look like your life is perfect. No. Nobody's life is perfect.
Right.
And, we all watching each other's show reels on Facebook. And this is why I felt like writing this book was really, first of all, it was a cathartic process for me to really go back and to really dig deep. And a part of it is also sharing with a lot of people my story of growing up in South Africa and things that I went through that shaped the way I am. Like, for instance, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and that shaped my identity as a girl. So for me, I was always like trying to be this overachiever and trying to, get people's attention, like, please love me. I feel rejected, so love me. And we have a lot of adults today walking around who have these sort of are arrested development, who emotionally have been stuck to where they were when they were 5. So I had to do a lot more soul work and a lot more inner healing and going back, and even to things that I thought that I dealt with, there were still some roots that were showing fruit that was still not right. And so God in his graciousness just was very kind and very gentle and took me through one step at a time. And I've always been the kind of person who wants to help others. Like, if I go through something, I'm going to make it worth my while. Like, if someone else is going to benefit from this. So for me, this whole book has been a compilation of that whole journey and what I found for myself to get that breakthrough where emotionally and spiritually and mentally and physically, I feel better than I ever have. And I'm at peace. And I think, it's like my mom always says, is it well with your soul? And finally I can say, yes, it is well with my soul. Where before there was always this angst of, I know I'm doing this, but like I should be doing this, but like I have this something in me that is, and it creates this frustration. And I think it's a lot of people have it in different ways, and it comes out in different forms, whether it's perfectionism, trying to be a control freak, or eating issues, or there's a whole lot of emotional issues out there that you could really nail down to. And if you had to trace it back, it comes down to things that have maybe perhaps happened to us that we haven't dealt with correctly. So for me, I just use it as a really good example. And I'm very open and very vulnerable. And I know some people might freak out and say, oh my God, I can't believe she shared that. But I feel that's what life's about. Like if I was speaking to you, we were meeting in a coffee shop and I was telling you about the situation, that's exactly how I've written it. I didn't want it sounding all academic. I wanted it to be pretty much like the way that I talk is the way that I write. And I was just very open about sharing very vulnerable moments and just realizing, everything from questioning my sanity to my faith. Believe me, I've been there. And I just hope at the end of the day that whoever reads it will find that encouragement that, first of all, you're not alone. We're all going through something. And there is a way that, and using God's help, that you can actually work through these things, because we can't just live in the physical. We can't just live in the mental. We are, we are spirit, soul, and body. And if you ignore one or the other, something, or some of that's going to have to give. And eventually it comes out in either broken relationships, you get sick and unhealthy, or things just, you start falling apart. So
this is the part. What you've just said and shared there. I can name people right now who are either going through it or gone through it or at that crossroads, or, why did this happen? I was building this business and then the plug got pulled from underneath me. I don't understand. And I just did a show with a gentleman, Rob Shear, on comfort cases, and it's all about foster children. And, bottom line is this: if we are living a life of dysfunction, or a life where we feel that we are having to appease, and everything's for everyone else at the cost of self,
Mm-hmm.
rewind it and go back to childhood. There's always something there. And, I call it society's expectations. You have to, you
Mm.
should, you will, instead of you are. Let's help you blossom. Let's help you discover. Let's nurture you into the beautiful
Mm.
bloom that you are meant to be. And I think we're changing that now with our own children, because we're realizing what beautiful gifts they are, what
Yeah.
ingenious imaginations they have. They are the future leaders, the future scientists, the future solutioners. And the more we nurture and love them and help them navigate through their life, the better society is going to be later. But
Mm.
we've had to have that cosmic 2x4, that rug
Yeah.
from pulled underneath it. All very well, bravo for achieving what you did, but that's not your path anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right?
that's the thing, is I think letting go is the hardest part. Like for me,
Yes.
I always had these goals. Like I had, when I'm going to do this, and then when things didn't play. And the problem, what I realized, is that my foundation and my identity was based on the wrong things. If you feel like
Yes.
having the status, having the money, and then when things don't go your way, then all of a sudden you implode or you fall
Mm-hmm.
apart. That means that your whole foundation was built on a rocky sand. I mean, how many of in the celebrity world have you heard, like, they have this rocket success, and
Yes.
then when they become a has-been, or they're no longer, like, say, athletes, they're in the
Yeah.
top of the game, and they think life's going to be like that forever. And then when they don't have their identity being an athlete or being a pop singer and they kind of get through that stage in life where things are winding down, they are totally dissatisfied with life, or worse, they don't want to be around anymore. And to me, that's just heartbreaking when somebody doesn't walk in their ultimate purpose that God destined us for.
Right.
We're trying to do somebody else's plan, because really what it comes down to, emotional issues that are, like, for instance, in my instance, is that I was always trying to be a people pleaser because I wanted people to like me, because if I look back, I had roots of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
From the way I was treated. I was severely bullied as a kid. So for me, it's always been trying to prove myself. Like, people would say, you're too young, you're stupid. So what do? As a perfectionist, you try to prove them that you're
Yeah.
smart,
Mm-hmm.
that you have it all together, that you're independent, which is why in the beginning of business, I was all like, this whole boss girl and thing. And I've just really realized that it's actually, it's not good for women to feel like you have to just be this independent, super successful, professional photos on your Instagram feed and all these millions of or thousands of followers. And that's like meant to be an indication of what your worth is. And I'm like,
No.
that's something's wrong there, right?
There's a disconnect. The thing is
Yeah.
that you have had, quote, the human success, but without spirit, without soul,
Yeah.
without that connection to heart, without really it being your meaningful purpose, your contribution. It's just something you do very well, right? But it's the human side of you. We can all do this and that. We can all be very, very good at it. But does that mean that it comes from the heart and the soul? Is your
Exactly.
spirit in it? Is that beautiful love? That beautiful four-letter word that gets so misunderstood. Is your divine love with you? And everything that you do. Because when we do things to please other people, to prove that we're worthy and that we can, look at what I've achieved, look at what I've built, this is me. No, that's just your capability. But
Yeah.
that's not you, because people lose identity along the way. They forget about the soul, heart, and spirit connection. They're working on one cylinder, the head.
Exactly.
You're right, everything
Yeah,
in
and
the
the thing is,
head.
the
And
world is
where's
definitely
your connection? Where's your connection?
exactly. And I think that part of the problem is that, and this whole thing is, don't even get me started on the whole school system and the ADHD and all that. We went through that, and that was literally I say to my husband, we've run, between the two of us, we've run like 5 businesses, in 3 different countries, and immigrating, and doing things that other people wouldn't dare to try, but having to deal with issues in my own home has been some of the hardest, most challenging I've ever had to deal with, because it's something that I couldn't control.
Right.
It's not like I had a blueprint. It's not like I had a strategy, or I could just buy this course or this self-help book and it will all just be fine. It wasn't so fine. And eventually I realized that I exhausted everything in my own knowledge, my own skill set, and my own energy and the capabilities, that all I could do was turn to God, because God knows the situation from beginning to the end. He knows me. He knows my family, every member of our family, where we are and what we need at the time. And instead of me just trying to say, okay, there's God, I go to church on Sundays and do my thing, I had to bring him into the conversation.
Yes.
Like, to me, we're on a journey in a car, I've allowed him, I've given him reins to drive the car of my life because I realize I can't get there, but I'm forever giving him peanut gallery comments like, oh, maybe we should do this. Like, I know you want to go here, but how about we take this detour? Because this one looks a lot more scenic. And eventually, like, you just need to be quiet. I'm driving. I know where I'm going. I have the GPS. And I'm like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? How about now?
It's the surrendering to allowing, isn't it? Exactly. And that's the hardest thing to do. If you have been a person that's been in control, been very successful, had to walk away from that success due to circumstances, you still want to be in control, even more so because now suddenly you're in control of nothing. And that surrendering to allowing is so very important because you realize you have no control. Right? You have no control. The only control you have is to sit back, tune in, right? Allow all those beautiful senses that are God-given to be switched on and pay attention because your path will be shown you. But if you're busy, it's easy. Are we there? What do you want from me? Can we stop here? Can we do this? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, exactly. And it's like, God said, oh my God, will you just shut up and listen?
Exactly. Exactly. And I had a lot of shut up and be quiet moments. And I mean, I'm very casual in the way that I talk. I have conversations with God all the time. And as I said, me and Jesus are like BFFs, and he's not exclusive to me. He can be invited into anybody's life, but for me, I can't do life without him. And I've realized that it's having that internal compass and having that internal voice that says, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe what you said, I think it kind of hurt her feelings. Maybe you should apologize. And for me, a big problem I realized was a root of pride because I had rejection as a kid, and I'm not going to ever let anybody treat me like that. And then pride gets in, and then it blinds you. Pride is one of those ego-based things that it makes you choose things because of pride or because of your ego when it's not necessarily what you should be doing.
Right.
And then what happens is, I know in some ways on paper you'd say, oh, you've had a successful life. I don't feel very successful, to be honest. I feel like I've done a few things, but I've never really been in where I feel like what I was destined to do and what I've achieved mean anything. Because now I look back at the things that I've done and, I'm like, well, so what? Did that help anybody else, or was it just for my personal gain?
Right. I mean, the thing is that what we're doing is we're redefining what abundance is. And, I had this conversation with my daughter who gets to travel a lot, and then she shares where she is. And I said to her, you truly have an abundant life. Mom, I don't want to be greedy. And I said, that's got nothing to do with greed. Because you've immersed yourself into life and you're truly living it. You're living it from the inside out and you're sharing it. You're sharing the love. I think one thing people need to understand, if we go into that space of the divine love, of God's love, and work from there, step out of head, step into allowing, just step into the love, everything that we need to know, that knowingness, right? That knowingness will be there. But we've got to go to that space of a deep breath, of silence, of stepping out of your way, most certainly disconnecting the head and going into your divine presence and allowing God's love just to come in and immerse through you, your entire body, your entire spirit, your entire everything. Then you start in that knowing, it's understanding what your real purpose is here. Exactly. But you can't do it if you're not willing to let go of the reins.
Well, exactly. And that's the hardest part. It's like you get to the edge of a cliff and, God says, I want you to jump. And you're like, whoa, I can't do it. But you don't realize is when you take that first step, I think it was in a movie. I think it was in one of the not the Tomb Raider. I can't remember where he literally, Harrison Ford, it'll come to me. He couldn't tell. He was in like this area where he had to step off this cliff. And it only... What is it? Only when he stepped off did the bridge make itself visible. It was invisible.
I know. I could see them right there. It was to do with the, God's cup, the golden goblet. So yes, somebody's shouting at it from us right
now. Exactly. I know, right? We'll remember. And we'll get all kind of, oh, that's what it was. But that always reminds me from that scene from that movie, because I'm a total movie buff, like the production and photography. I love analyzing stories and stuff. But for me, it was a real good eye opener. Like, there was a bridge the whole time, but it took him taking the first step into nothingness for the bridge to make itself visible. But that is the thing about faith, is that you don't understand. I think, okay, a lot of people think, well, God has to show me the bridge and the way, and then I'll step. No, that's not how it works.
No.
You have to step first, and then you need to understand that.
It's taking that leap of faith and trust that you will be placed where you need to be. That leap of faith, blind, deaf, and dumb, in order to hear, see, and feel. you will be where you are meant to be when you are in trust. And it is the hardest thing, because our ego, our control, our insecurity, our fears, everything comes washing over us. The but,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Big buts.
And this is where, switch this off because this dialogue is just spinning you
And it's
around.
hard, because if you think
Yes.
about it, our whole school system's based on
Yes.
the mental side, which I think is,
Yes.
don't even get me started about that, because
Right. Yeah,
literally
I
I
know.
have come from a family of creative entrepreneurial thinkers, but at the same time, I've never fit into a corporate box, or I never fit
Right.
into school. To me, it was so frustrating. But I believe, and this is part of the whole process I also learned that I wrote about in the book, is that, like, I just, my children have their own unique, like everybody's children, but in particular mine they just don't fit in the regular system. And I'm like, well, it's not surprising, because
Nobody
they're my
does.
kids. But yet
Yeah,
we
but also
force
nobody
these
does. It's
kids.
not designed for
Exactly. It's like
humanity.
all so
Yeah.
cerebral. I mean, unless you want
Yes.
to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, I'm not dissing anybody. I'm just saying the school system is training people to think with their brains, and it totally disengages the heart. And I feel
Yes.
that is why we have so many children who are having these identity crises.
Yes, because they're
Everything
not
from,
feeling their knowledge. They're
they're
not
not
attaching that
exactly,
feeling to the
and then
knowledge.
that's when the depression and the
Yes.
anxiety and the fear. I mean, don't even get me started with I mean, my eldest daughter's in college, and the stories she tells me about what these kids have to cope with, and what they're relying on, and this, I wouldn't even say what they're putting in their mouths just to
Yes.
survive.
Yes, exactly. It's a
There's so much
spiral.
lie.
But there again, we're going back to this awful thing of expectation. You
Mm-hmm.
are a failure unless you reach here. I don't care how you reach here. I don't care how much you abuse your body. I don't care
Exactly.
how
Just keep
much your
going and going
mind
and going.
unravels. But as long as you are here, now you're
Mm-hmm.
worthy. Of whom?
Exactly. And
I'm
everybody's
only
like, well,
worthy
they
of
will be.
God's love. I
Exactly.
speak from the divine. I speak from the heart and the soul. And no, it's not always heard, because I'm speaking to people that are in the head that haven't yet embraced the heart and the soul. But this is all I know. This is all I want to know,
Mm-hmm.
because when I stepped into that other world of expectation, I was never good enough. It didn't
Yeah.
matter what I achieved. I
Exactly. And that's
was
the thing, is
never
it
good enough.
doesn't
And
matter.
it's
Like, never
disheartening.
be.
No, you
It
will
is. And
never
the
be.
thing is, it's so sad, is that, like, I look at it and I just see, like, how my kids are getting crushed, and their spirits are getting crushed by
Mhm.
the system. And I mean, one of them, I actually pulled out of school and I put in a different school system, because I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I mean, literally, it's crushing them.
It's
They're losing.
soulless. It's
It's
soulless.
soulless. And
Yes.
what do you have to, like, especially in America, like, in South Africa, I grew up with a totally different school system.
Mm-mm.
College, not everybody went to college. I didn't go to college. I decided I
Right.
wanted to work, because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
And back then, college was between 2 and 3 years of, you stay at home, you go to
Mm-hmm.
college during the day, and then, when you get married, you leave home. We're here in the USA. I'm like, this is a totally new system, where you send them off for this college experience where they're away from home. First of all, most 17-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds are not mature enough to handle that kind of thing. So either
No.
they go one way or the other. And then it's kind of like my husband and I call it faux adulting, like pretend adults, right? Mom and dad are still paying the bills, but she
Yes.
thinks that she's independent.
I'm
And she is.
independent. Yes, I can make
But
my own choices.
but at the
Yes.
end of the day, it's like, I hear the stories. I mean, it's like 3 hours of sleep. I'm totally stressed. I'm stressed. I'm stressed. I'm stressed. I'm like, if I have to hear that again, I'm like, you haven't even started life and you already are burnt
Yeah.
out. I'm like,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
kids are going to be 22, graduating college, and then they've only just ticked the box of the bare minimum of, oh, I've got a college degree. Now what?
Well, I was fortunate with my children, because they're 29 to 35, and for them it was my son's a very entrepreneurial spirit, so he actually went and took entrepreneurial courses, and he's a driver and a doer. He's got to immerse himself into it. So being in college and sitting at a desk and learning would never have been his thing. It's like, how can I apply this knowledge? All right. So he was out there, took the knowledge he learned, did other things that he learned along the way, and applied and learned through experience. My youngest went back to school at 27 when she finally decided what she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she just comes out now with her social worker diploma. She wants to go on and do her master's. She wants to work with addiction kids, because now, having lived, having experienced life, she truly knows what she wants to do from her heart and her soul that has
Yeah.
meaning to her. By saying to kids, now you've got to go from one school to another and you've got to go and learn a career you're going to do for the rest of your life and you haven't yet
Oh,
discovered
and by
who
the way,
you
you're only
are.
17 or 18 when you have to make this decision, like
Yes.
life-changing decisions.
No.
I mean, I totally disagree. So I said this whole topic gets me totally heated, and this is what I went through is, and part of what I share about in my book is how I was a parent. My child was hurting, but so was I. I didn't feel
Yes.
anybody advocated for me as the child's mother. What are the parents saying? Like, I know my child better than any teacher, and all I ever heard was the child is not doing this and not achieving this. The grades are not this, and all the negative stuff. So
Yes.
anybody will be crushed by that criticism. I mean,
Right.
why are we allowing it to happen? And eventually it's like, I can't take it anymore. And it's not to say, some people go, oh, well, that, some people would frame that as failure. I'm like, no, I actually think that's smart. I've
Yes.
realized something ain't work, so we're going to change it.
Right.
This whole thing
Oh,
about
it is just
nobody
what it
gives
is.
up.
And
Yeah.
we know that's the system. You've just got to go with it. And no, I'm sorry. Let us look at North America right now. Let's look at many countries in the world. There are some systems in place that were put there a long time ago that have been twisted around into knots and pretzels that just do not serve anybody anymore, except for, your top people who are still manipulating. They've taken choice away. They've taken the value of life away. They've put money in its place. They've put status in its place. And that unless you have the BBBs, the DDDs and everything else behind you, and unless you're earning several million a year, and unless you're driving this car, unless you belong to this club, and unless you're associating with that person, you're not worth anything. Excuse me? No.
Against whose standards, right? Like, it's like ridiculous.
It is because
decided, and everybody knows about they, but nobody knows who they are.
Right, exactly. And that actually is something that we have to pay attention to, is how come we've given our power away? We've lived up to somebody else's expectation, but who are they? Right? Why has it cost me my heart and soul? Where is my spirit in anything? Why do I feel so empty? I've achieved A, B, and C, but none of that feels anything to me. Yet, if I step into my true meaningful purpose and I step into the value of life and what I contribute to that beautiful growth of life, I'm now stepping into abundance. I'm far more enriched.
Well, you can give more of yourself when you have yourself to give. And that's, for me, you can't give from a place of emptiness. And that's what I realize is that, no matter what it says on paper, what things, and it also doesn't help when you're seeing these other people who say, oh, my life's so fabulous, especially here in the US, it's a big thing about, oh, you just do this formula and you just buy this thing and then all of a sudden it's just magic. It's like a magic pull.
It's like just going to have the plastic surgery and suddenly you're going to feel beautiful. Right, yeah.
And that's not real life. And I think really we're at the cusp in society and in life, and part of, like, I've been willing just to say, okay, God, use me. Yeah. I am willing to be a guinea pig. Let me use my hands and my mouth. If I'm the one who's going to be willing to stand up and say something, then I will. Because I think we're at the cusp of things that are going to change. We are getting to a stage where, like, for instance, the school system has to change. We are crushing kids' spirits. If you think about it again, when you talk about being 5 years old, like, this creativeness in them, and you just start to see that light die. And that's exactly what happened to me. And this, what I share in my book, is that I had all these, who I was, and and then eventually the light just got dimmed and dimmed and dimmed, and eventually it was like I was a fraction of who I was meant to be. And it's only when I went back to really understanding back to purpose, which is why I'm so passionate about helping other women, because I know how frustrating it was feeling stuck, that helping people understand their purpose, like, what are your skills, like, what makes you happy, like, what brings you joy, and it could be something flippant. Like, for me, what brings me joy is I love figure skating. Like, I started learning to figure skate at 33.
Right.
Get it as a kid, but hey, I want to challenge myself. So what is it that brings you joy? What is it that the people say, the dream job? I don't believe in jobs anymore. I believe in purposes. We're here on earth for a reason. And what is your purpose? Like, whether you're, and this is the thing, is like, you go to a cocktail party, hi, my name's Jim, what do you do? In other words, as if that's who you are.
Yes.
I've learned to change the conversation. When I meet people, I'll go, hi, I'm Mimika, what makes you happy? What are you excited about? And it's amazing. People are like, what? I don't care about your resume or your degrees, because it really means nothing at the end of the day. It's not telling me anything about you.
Yes, that's actually, I have a friend, Barbara, and she was saying, like, on those boxes, are you a Miss, a Mrs, or this or that, divorced, married, or whatever, and she just puts happy. and lets them come to their own conclusion, which I think is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you happy because? Are you happy that they're spiraling around? But no, I'm just simply happy. And I think that's the thing is the labeling, of what we should be. I mean, I obviously get it here. I'm a specialty station. We're speaking from heart and soul. We're speaking to the people who have gone through the redirect, people who are going through it to show you you're not alone. We've been through it too. This is what we did. This is how we honored ourselves. This is what we're doing now. And we're so much more in peace and in love and in joy and in purpose than we were before. And you can be too. This is what these shows are about, is to show people the how. And, but you're not doing this, but you're not doing that. No, I'm not. I'm doing what I am meant to do. And that's all I'm meant to do. And that's the thing is, we need to step in to what our meaningful purpose is and know it's enough. It's only you to measure how it is enough. You can always grow. Those wings can always spread. There can always be more wind beneath your wings. But we've got to get out of this dictation of what we should be or what you're doing wrong. Step into your meaningful purpose when it comes from the heart and soul, when it comes from the God's divine.
Yeah.
It's his voice coming through you.
What
right?
lights you up, right?
Basically.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's what it is. I mean, at the end of the day is what lights you up, what makes you happy, because this whole thing about, go to college, get a degree, get a job. It's great for back when, but most people don't really want to be in a job. I mean, yes, there are jobs, and I'm not saying that, looking for a corporate position is bad. All I'm saying is it's not for everybody.
No.
Sometimes there's a different path that we need to take, but we feel like society has made everyone feel like if you don't take the general path, and like, oh my gosh, scandal. Like, what are we going to do if things aren't perfect? We just have to redefine what our purpose and what our life, our framework needs to be for us individually. And what's good for me might not be good for you. Like for me, I've had to be flexible because my kids are different ages and every stage. Like when they were babies, I mean, there's very little that I could do. When I was held down to math schedules and tantrums and all that, it's a different mindset. Now one's in college, one's in high school, and one's in elementary school. I'm at a different stage of my life, and I have to allow myself that time and that space to breathe. And sometimes it's okay just to take time out. Like,
yes,
I withdrew myself from social media for a whole year, and you know what? Nobody noticed. It's only when I started coming back that,
where have you been?
And I was so worried before that if I didn't post every day or if I didn't show a perfect picture every day, everyone wouldn't love me. But nobody really cared because everybody is inherently selfish and is concerned about themselves.
Yeah.
We realize, like, if I look at Facebook, I can't get my worth from somebody else's holiday vacation pictures. That's not what makes me happy.
Yeah.
So it is. It's just a whole redefining. Write your own script to your own story, and just really allowing myself to make the decision. Like, I'm feeling really tired today. I know I need to do this, but what's best for me is just to take a 30-minute nap.
Yes.
Instead of pushing myself through, like I've learned to listen to my body and realize, what, today's not a great day. Tomorrow I'll figure it out. I'll make it up for tomorrow. But then you also have to watch for the procrastination of not avoiding things you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I feel like sometimes it's more like, for me and Google Calendar are like big friends, because if I don't put something in my diary and make an appointment with myself, it doesn't happen. So again, it just depends on what works for you.
I think the important thing is too is you have to get to know yourself, your triggers, your parameters, because if you have been through what we call the hell and back, because you've been through the trauma
of the soul, or
right, exactly. You're not going to come out of it without some sort of repercussions, and it could be physical, could be emotional, and everything about you needs to slow down, even come to a stop, and then be rebuilt slowly. And you're going to know, I can't do what I used to do. I don't want to do what I used to do. And this, if I went and did that, is just going to shatter me all over again. So know your parameters, know what triggers those things of, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that, and honor yourself. But you have to stop and take that journey in to know, who are you now before you even know where you're going, right? And what, if I went down that path, what price was I paying? Make sure that you know that road is going to constantly come up again and tease you. Come on back.
Well, it's like anything, right? If you say yes to one thing, you say no to something else. So again, I feel like you've got to decide what your yeses and your nos are. And for me, the biggest lesson I learned was to say no more often.
Yes.
I was so worried about offending people and disappointing them. And, at the end of the day, so what? People get over the disappointments. Jesus did that too. He disappointed people all the time. They wanted him to do things and he's like, sorry, this is not where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be in this place. And that's fine. As long as you feel like and it all comes down to priorities, like what is valuable to you.
Yeah.
And to me, I can't walk my life and make decisions for my life without having God's divine help and direction. Like, okay, what are we going to do today, Lord? And I'm like, because then you're not fighting against this. Because I always felt like I was pushing against this wall, like always this whole hustle mentality of got to strive, got to push. And I don't believe in that. I think that's actually a sign that there's resistance when you're doing something good. But there's a difference between having resistance and getting to a breakthrough that is worthwhile than you trying to knock down a door that is not meant for you.
If you keep getting concussion, maybe it's not, you stop hitting
like,
your head against the wall, right? Yeah.
How much longer are you going to exhaust yourself until you get the picture, right?
Yeah. But,
even like things, another thing that I learned as well that God showed me as well is that he talks to me in pictures a lot. Like he says, you want this thing, like you asking me for this whole bag of cookies. And I'm like, oh, I want them, I want that, and I want this because I know I'm going to really need this. And he's like, okay, you want them. So he gives them to me. He says, now pig out. Right. And he sits and he waits until I make myself so sick. And I go, you know what, I don't want that anymore. I thought I wanted that. And that's just gross to me. It makes me feel sick. And even though I had whether it's success or like for me, I wanted to be strived, to build a successful business and do these coaching and speak on stage and do all that. And I know eventually there's a desire for that for a reason. Yes. I was in the wrong market, in the wrong setting, in the wrong mindset. And to me, it's been the biggest thing as a mindset makeover has been the biggest revelation that I could ever have is to reset my focus, reset my priorities, and really reset where I want to put my energy and understanding that I have a choice. I don't have to let they dictate what I have.
And that relationship with God that you have is an inside job. It's within you, and it is a relationship. It is a partnership, and we know that we see so many human beings. I call them humanoids out there running around, constantly trying to look for approval from other human beings. And do you like me now? And when you actually let God in and center Him, He is with you in every decision that you make, in every action that you make. You know that you're coming from a totally different place, and what used to be important to you isn't anymore. It's like, nah, we're not going there. I don't need that approval. I don't need it. The approval is an inside job now. God, are we working together? Did we achieve something today? Right? Exactly. It's a totally different level, but you have to be willing to take the journey inside, and you have to be willing to look at your childhood or what triggered it. Where did this drive come from? Because if you're not willing to do the work, how are you going to understand you and where you need to be now, or even how are you going to understand the relationship you have with God?
Exactly. So, and that's the whole thing, is you just get to the stage where you have signs along the way that says, listen, you need to take that and do that internal work. And eventually the signs get louder and louder and louder until they become a speed bump, and then they become a total stop street. Then you literally cannot. And I would advise perhaps listening to the signs a little earlier before your whole life falls apart.
Right.
But the good thing is, even though if things do fall apart, so what? You can always pick up and start again.
That's the point. It's not the end of it all. It's an end of a chapter.
Exactly.
And it's time for you to rewrite. I
had this chapter that I really found was a total revelation to me. Is I write about the old Japanese art of kintsugi. It's basically it's the art of broken scars. It means that they have an artist takes, say, ceramics or pottery that's broken, and he rebuilds it, but he uses 24 karat gold leaf liquid, and by the time he's finished making this piece, it's stronger than it ever was, and then the scars actually what make it more valuable, because now it's not just this plain old clay pot. It's now been beautified, and the scars are there. And it's definitely, the Japanese call it, it's like a view on life as well as an art form. Yep. And I just find that a really beautiful illustration of how God sees that too. Even though we all have this brokenness and perhaps we've fallen apart in places, when we allow Him to be the potter and to put us back into pieces, He uses that gold and refines us. And eventually what we see is we're stronger, more resilient, and we're more valuable at the end.
Right. So. We have to understand all those breakages. I'm a porcelain doll that's been broken into many pieces, and some pieces have been lost and couldn't go back together, and other pieces are, and you're going to see some cracks and this and that. But in those imperfections that you see has become the perfection of who I am. and I'm never
Yeah.
going to be perfect, but I'm perfect in my imperfections. And it's only when you've actually pieced yourself back together, that, with God's love, that you actually understand it's okay if the cracks show. It's okay if
Yeah.
the pieces show, because it shows the journey that I've taken. But it also shows that no matter how many cracks are there, I am now whole. I am whole. It's not about the plastic surgery and hiding the
Yeah.
scars, right? It's about the scars show my journey. They show my resilience. They show my tenacity. They show my faith. They show my belief in life to keep getting up and carrying on. Because when you find a meaningful purpose, you know you're here for a bigger reason. And that when
Exactly.
you step into that reason, now you're going to take any knocks, but the knocks stop happening. You don't need to have those broken pieces anymore. You start to feel whole, but you've got to be willing to take that path in order to that wholeness.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
And it's not such a hard journey, is it? When when resistance is futile, when we stop resisting and we start allowing, and
Well,
we
it's the
let we
waiting
step
that's the
into
worst.
receiving.
Is,
Yeah,
it's, I find if
yeah,
I look at my own situation, the resistance was longer. The healing was much quicker. Once I decided to allow myself to go through the
yes.
process, I mean, I always thought it would be super painful, but it was actually, if I look back now, it wasn't as long and drawn out as I thought it would be. I mean, for me, it was probably about a year. But considering I had been going around resisting this for like, I'm in my 40s now, so like I call it 40 years in the wilderness. Same thing, what was meant to be an 11-day journey took them 40 years because they didn't
Yes.
picture. Like, so can we learn from that, please?
Yes, yes, exactly. We're trying to speed things up for you here with shows like this, that, step into it. Don't
Hmm.
resist it. Don't try. You can't go around. You have to go through. It's like, gestation of pregnancy and giving birth. Yes, birth
Hmm.
is painful, but oh, that baby at the other end. Give birth to yourself and just look at yourself as this beautiful new wonderment of possibilities of where you can go, and embrace that. And all that pain was worth it. It really was.
Definitely. I'll totally agree.
Yeah. I don't know why we resist so much, because I think a lot of it is that we're still working on this doctrine of we should be. This is important. We've talked about education. The labels behind you are important because they impress other people and they show other people, therefore you must be important. If we look at the people that have had the biggest impact in life, they're people that have stepped from themselves with their divine presence, and they've stepped up and spoken from that truth. And we didn't look to see what labels were, or numbers or letters were attached with them, what their resume was, what their bank account was. We've been inspired by their truth, by their love, by their conviction. And that was what the invitation was. And that's their credential, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, I'm just excited that had the opportunity to go through the process. At the time it was painful, but I'm just grateful that God's patient enough with me that He's now given me the opportunity and the platform and the voice to share about this and just to help others, because that's really, I realize, amongst everything I've ever done, I only get my greatest joy by helping other people and feeling like, to me, I want to get to heaven one day and I'll be like in total armor gear, like bent and disheveled, and my face is dirty, and I'm like, okay, God, I did it. I
Yes.
don't want to be on the sidelines, welcoming the troops. I want to be in the troops, like,
Right. Yeah,
heading
the
down
warrior, yes.
the
And
warrior
that's the
that's
thing,
actually
we
done that.
can be, that's the thing. What do you stand for? You need to
Hmm.
ask yourself this question. We see all the wrongs that are happening in the world, and you don't have to go put everything right. You have to choose what it is you're going to stand for. What is your platform? How are you going to use it? Who is it going to serve? And that's part of your own self-discovery. And when you step into that platform of, I am the warrior for this, I am going to advocate, I'm going to speak out, I'm going to stand up for, that's when you step into your empowerment. And then be true to that, right? You're not here to solve everybody's issues, but stand up for something that truly is meaningful for you.
Exactly, which is exactly why I named the book Warrior to Warrior. So
Yes,
I had been stuck in worry and anxiety for years, always
yes.
trying to control things and feeling, what if, and then realizing that, allowing God to work through me and going through that process, that I can take control and make the decision and the choices to go through that process and that healing. So I can become a warrior and war for others and fight for what I believe is right. And, really using God's guidance through this all to really have a completely healed life and soul, so that I can do what's important. Because I felt like I was always had this sort of like thorn or this crutch or this
Yeah.
hobbling on a crutch and halfway, always everything was so much more energy. But now that I've let just release itself and allow myself to walk in what I know God wants me to do, things just flow. There isn't this resistance and this
Yes.
fighting this whole time. So I definitely would advise people just
And the
go with it.
important thing is too is that oh, how can I walk away from such success, or that everything that I've learned. What you're going to do is everything that is important, the techniques, the tools, the skills of what you used to do, you're not going to apply to what it is you're really meant to do. Nothing
Mm,
is wasted, right?
exactly.
All
Nothing's
those
wasted.
all those years, you're just going to take them now, and instead of utilizing them to do that, you're now going to redirect them to empower this. So don't be worried about, oh, but no,
Yeah,
just take it with
He
you.
uses everything. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing is God doesn't waste anything. Like even the mistakes that I made, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. He's like, don't
Yeah.
worry, we'll still use it. You still learn something as long as you
Yes.
remain teachable and realize, okay, that was a total hot mess, but what did I learn from it that I can then take to the next stage of my life? Or like now with my book, I'm self-publishing because it's something that I felt like I needed to control because I didn't want a publisher watering down my voice.
Yeah.
And through the whole process, I had people that were going to help me that kind of fell away. And it's kind of like I'm learning the process from the inside out because I wanted to know what it is required. And yeah, there's a lot of tech, but I have the skills. Like before, wouldn't have a clue. But I
Yeah.
have all the marketing skills. I have all the business skills. I know what needs to be done. It's just a matter of doing it and then not worrying about the outcome, where before I'd always try to control the
Yeah.
outcome. Now I'm like, I'm doing this book, God, and then it's up to you. Like I'm doing all the things I know that needs to be done, but instead of that like, anxiety of holding it
Yes.
together, like what if it tanks? Well, at least I feel like I've been obedient and God gave me an instruction to do it. And even if it helps one person, although honestly, I would prefer that it helps thousands of people because I know
Right.
it's worthwhile. But at the end of the day, I can't be so fixated on the numbers. I have
Thank
to
you.
just feel like
Yeah.
I'm more focused on I know this was something that only I could do. And sometimes we don't see a fruition of our efforts until maybe years later, as long
Yes.
as you can come to peace about that. And it's hard when you live in an instant fix
Yes.
society where everyone is an overnight success. No one is. It's really not true. But it all comes down to obedience. Once I stopped trying to be stubborn and I relented and just did what God told me to do, because He was giving me a blueprint, but I wouldn't, kept my mouth going. Couldn't hear anything. It's only when I zipped it and realized, okay, I need to listen, and then the signs and the strategy are there. It's just a matter of taking the time. So,
Right. And the whole numbers game, I get that. Or I'm only going to come on your show if you have 5 or 10,000 followers. And it's like, then you're not the right person for the show. Because if you come on the show and you want to change one person's life, and yes, if we could change 1,000, fantastic. But if you come in with the point of view to change one person's life,
mhm.
then you're the kind of person I want. Because it's not about the numbers, the popularity, look how important I am. It's about, did you, with your presence, reach down through the audio, through that video, and embrace somebody in need and help
Yeah,
redirect them? Whoever reads your book are going to be people who need to read it because they're on
yeah.
that journey. So it isn't about how popular for the next J.K. Rowling. It's about what is the impact. What's the
Mhm.
impact of your story today? What is the impact of your book when somebody reads it? How does it redirect them? How does it support them? How does it show love to them? Because ultimately, that's God's gift.
Exactly. And we don't know. Like for me, I could be helping somebody who eventually becomes something bigger, but
Yeah.
without this tool that they wouldn't, if
Yes.
they hadn't read my book along the path, it would have kept them, stuck out of a purpose, and they are destined to do something even bigger than and I'm okay with that. Before I'd be like, no,
Exactly.
I want the glory. Want to be about me. But now I'm like, I really see it like, and I have had several dreams about this where God showed me that I'm in a room of a lot of babies. Like some of them are newborn, some of them are 6 months, some of them are toddlers, and they all need nurturing. But it's like they've been abandoned and no one knows how to look after them. And I feel like I'm responsible for
Mm.
these babies. So I know that part of my whole ministry and what I do helping people is help them birth these babies and then help
Yes.
them nurture them. And then I might never see them grow up completely and see the fruition. I've always been a seed planter. So for me, I plant
Mm-hmm.
seeds, I till the ground and, I water it. And then eventually I've had to come to peace about the fact is I might never know until when I get to heaven one day, like, oh, that is so cool. Is that
Yeah,
what
no.
happened from it? So I'm okay with that. So, and I believe that, there's always this knock on effect that somebody else that I'll teach might go on to teach somebody else and they could have an influence of thousands, that eventually that all gets, I believe in heaven, it will credit it back to me, that the
Right.
effort that I put in, if I
Yeah,
am able
I mean,
to.
it's also it's that human ego, isn't it? Is that
Yeah,
I want the approval. Did you approve? Did you approve of me? What's the comments? What's the response? Has people signed up? Blah, 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 blah. Let that go. This is now being spent. It's
yeah,
out. The words, the vibration, the intent, the love is out there. All right, it's out there, and those that are ready to pick it up, that are on that same vibration, are going to pick it up, and they're going to use it. No, we may never hear from them.
yeah.
And I'm, spiritual counselor through my life and worked with a lot of people. When they stopped calling me, I knew they no longer needed me and they were on their
Mm.
journey, and I may never ever see them or know them again. And it used to be a little frustrating, but it would be nice to know. And then it was not for you to know. You've done your part. Now they're off
Exactly.
doing their part. And that's, don't look for the validation. Um, and I get flack about this, but don't you want, and I'm done. It's spent. It's gone. On to the next. And,
Mm.
it is what it is. It's now out of my hands. It's now
Yeah,
out of my hands. It's in God's hands. And it will go to those that need to hear it. And this is what
exactly.
we need to do. Stop looking for everybody else's approval or the numbers. It's who is hearing it that needs to hear it, or is reading it that needs to read it, that's going to help them on their journey. And that's all we can do. Send it with love. And that's it.
Exactly.
So
Definitely.
having said that, how do they get the book? How do they find you? What else have
Oh,
you got to
sure.
offer right now?
Well, pretty much the best place to find me is on my website, which is mimikacooney.com, spelled MIMIKACOONEY.com. And I'm on everywhere on social media as Mimika Cooney. I hang out the most on Facebook, which is the Mimika Cooney, Instagram, Mimika Cooney. Those are my favorites. And then I'm on every other platform. I also have a YouTube channel. But pretty much the information's on my website. But if you're on Amazon, go ahead and you can, wherever you are in the world, I've made it available as an ebook as well as a printed book, because for me it's more about distribution and getting it in people's hands, and then about the income. That's
Yeah.
peripheral. It's more about really just getting the story out there and encouraging people. So definitely you can go. As of this recording, we are a week away from launching, but once it's out there, it'll be there. So whichever way you like to. And in actual fact, next week I'll be recording the audio version. So whether you like to listen to audio or read a book, or like to see other visuals, I'm going to be providing that too. So, and it's called Warrior to Warrior: A Mother's Journey from Fear to Faith. And I'd be super excited if you did read it to leave me a review. I'd love to hear your feedback.
Right. And the thing is as you said in the opening there, the opening speech there, everybody, as you were speaking, that's that person, that's that person, that's that person. There is something that somebody's going to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what you've come from, whether it's that feeling of insecurity, the lack of education, the feeling that you had to prove yourself, all of those things, why don't they love me, blah blah blah, all of that. Everybody's got that story somewhere in their youth. Go back and heal your inner child. Go
Mm-hmm.
back and love that inner child, and then step into God's love and find your meaningful purpose and let go of the reins, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Trust God. He will show you where to go, and then just pay attention to the signs.
Exactly. They are there.
They're all there. They're all there. So it's mimikacooney.com. Please
Mhm.
get the book. It's a wonderful thing to gift. Because you're gifting a story.
Yeah, and it's
You
also for
know
Mother's
somebody going
Day.
through exactly Mother's Day, Father's Day, even, because then
Exactly.
that helps to actually understand the mother, the wife, the
Yeah.
sister, the daughters, and
And actually,
everybody
if
else.
they go to my website, mimikacooney.com, I am also offering extra goodies that go with the book. Like I have some prayer activation guides that are listed in the book, which you can get a free download. And I have a whole bunch of other free goodies like printables and scripture cards and all those things. So definitely go there, and I want to equip you with enough tools, like things that I love to do, as well as from our photography. I have like these little screensavers as well. I go offer those for
Right.
free. So, when I open my phone, I have to remind myself, like I can, read a scripture or a good positive reinforcement. So, okay, refocus,
Do you
just
have the
little
book
things
with
like
you
that.
right there that you can show
I
us?
don't. I
Like already?
haven't received it yet from the publisher. And I mean, I'm waiting like that every day. I'm checking the mailbox,
Bated
like,
breath.
where's my And yeah, it's been quite an interesting process because of the self-publishing. I've had to do everything from registering the ISBN and the cover and all the nitty gritty that goes into it. But I definitely have learned a ton, and I'll definitely be. If you look on social media, you'll see the cover. It's a picture of me in a red dress, which is very significant because it really is to show, especially it's written for women, but men can read it too. It's wearing a very smart dress is to show women that you are valuable. You are a child of God and you are seen as valuable. And I'm carrying a sword and the Bible, which is definitely the whole sword of the Spirit, which is the tools that we use a lot, and it is a Christian living book. So I do, mention my faith. And it's the first time I've actually been very open about my faith. And that was the other frustration is all the other stuff. I always felt like I had to filter me. Like didn't want to tell people that I was a Christian, or maybe I didn't let them know in some ways. But now I'm like, that's me. Either you like me or you don't. And I don't care.
Right, exactly.
You take it, what you see is what you get. And that's just how I feel I have to live the rest of my life. So, I'm good with that.
Yeah, precisely. Be honest and true to who you are. That's the greatest gift that you can give someone else, right?
Exactly.
And you don't need anybody else's approval. All you need is to be in your presence with God, with love, and then you are all you need. And that's the way it is. When you step into that, then you'll understand. Take the journey. It's worth it. This feeling is good, isn't it?
It is.
Thanks so much for coming back, and also for embracing your redirect, the resetting of your life. So many people are so scared to do so. Yet the buts, and the duty and the what ifs and all of that. But you embraced it. You stopped, you listened, you paid attention, you honored yourself, your inner soul, you reconnected, and now you're out there serving others with the book, with your journey, and with your love. And that's all that we can ask for. So thank you.
Exactly. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, it's been wonderful having you back. So mimikacooney.com, get the book, pre-order it, get all the goodies that goes along with it, give it as a gift to someone. Somebody who's going through a hard time right now. This is a book that can help them on their journey, because this is what it's about. And don't forget to share these shows, have a conversation, put down on the table, what is it you're going through right now? Sisterhood, brotherhood, familyhood. Talk about it. Don't keep it to yourself, all right? Because it will eat you up, all right? Until next time, folks, lots of love. Bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.